This is Sid. No, not him. Him. Yes, Sid is an employee in your organization. Research shows that people, and that includes Sid, forget roughly 56% of any information that they have acquired within an hour of learning it. Within 24 hours, this increases to a staggering 70%, and within a week, 90% of that information they've learned has disappeared, which means that forgetting what Sid has learned is inevitable. From small things like where he left his keys to things more substantial like that crucial sales negotiation technique that he had learned, it's inevitable that your learners, like Sid, will forget what you had imparted via that training program. And that should be a significant concern for you in L&D. For how can Sid apply what he has learned if he's forgotten 90% of that learning within a week? Because that renders your learning initiative unproductive, not only in terms of time and effort, but is also a colossal waste of money. And the financial loss is magnified when you consider the time that Sid needed to set aside from his work to attend these programs. The opportunity cost, in other words. So, does that mean organizations must simply stop offering Sid learning opportunities? No, that would be counterproductive. Rather, we just need to find a way to help Sid retain what he's learned, and that requires us to first understand why we forget things. There are many reasons we forget things, but in this video, we will look at two. Here's reason one, the forgetting curve. No, we didn't make that one up to compete with the learning curve theory. The forgetting curve is for real. Really. In the 1880s, German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus conducted memory experiments on himself. As part of his experiments, Ebbinghaus memorized a series of meaningless syllables such as WID and ZOF and other such syllables, and then tested his recall at different time intervals. What Ebbinghaus found was that absent timely and consistent repetition of the knowledge acquired or the lessons learned, these lessons were quickly and easily forgotten. Ebbinghaus dubbed this phenomenon the forgetting curve. What he found was that the memory of lessons learned declines sharply within a short time of learning it and then plateaus with only about 10% of the lessons retained over time, as you can see in this graph. But does the forgetting curve afflict everyone? Now, while I hate to generalize, research seems to say that the forgetting curve is a universal phenomenon. Don't believe me? Then think back to the time where you forgot your grocery list at home and then couldn't remember half the items on that list when you got to the store. That is a classic example of the forgetting curve. Now, let's move on to reason two, the interference theory. Another theory? Yes, but that's just a fancy phrase for a rather simple phenomenon. First postulated in 1892 by scientist John A. Bergstrom and later refined by other scientists, the interference theory states that new information obtained can interfere with the recollection of older memories or information unless the old information or memories have had time to be consolidated or solidified in our brain first before the new information is received. So remember that sales training you had put Sid through where he learned how to open a sale, build rapport, ask consultative questions, handle objections, advance a sale, negotiate and then close sales, all in one learning event? Well, poor Sid's brain had no time to consolidate any one skill before the second and the third and the fourth were heaped upon him one after another in one learning event. Consequently, Sid remembers pretty much nothing of that training today. And you can't blame him for that. Actually, we can blame the makeup of the human brain for that. So then, how can post-learning memory loss be overcome? We'll look at a few studies, including Ebbinghaus's, to learn how post-learning memory loss can be overcome. 1. Take care of the neurochemical traces. When we learn new things, the learning leaves behind a neurochemical trace in our brains. But if we don't revisit what we had learned periodically, this neurochemical trace starts fading away due to disuse. And that's why we forget the bulk of what we have learned. That, by the way, is according to a theory called the trace decay theory and can be overcome by actively rehearsing the learning at regular intervals. Ebbinghouse's study also revealed as much. He found that revisiting lessons periodically allowed him to retain what he had learned in increasing amounts. With each repeated learning, Ebbinghaus found that his performance kept improving progressively. 2. Space out learning by adding adequate time intervals between each learning. Now, repetition alone is insufficient in helping memory retention. The spacing between the repetition is equally important. And while I plan to put out a video soon on the ideal spacing between lessons learned, let me simply leave you with a nifty formula to help your learners overcome the forgetting curve. Rehearsal of new learning plus adequate time between learning sessions equals spaced repetition, a robust means of filling in the gaps in our memory that start to fade from lack of revision. 3. Take care especially of the extremities as much as of the middle, not my middle, the learning initiatives in the middle of the learning journeys you've designed for your learners. Ebbinghaus found that the first few items and the last few items on the list were better remembered than those in the middle, something he termed as the serial position effect. So take care of the learning at the start and at the end of the learning journey as much as, if not more, than the learning initiatives in the middle of the learning journey. In other words, make sure that you have a strong opening and a very strong recap to go with your entire learning. Also ensure that there are enough recap modules or enough post-learning recap initiatives to ensure that your learners do not forget what they had learned in the first or the primary learning event. You know what's a wonderful tool to help you overcome the forgetting curve and the interference theory? Microlearning, especially video microlearning. Microlearning, especially video format microlearning, works as a brilliant tool to help your learner overcome the forgetting curve. We'd love to hear from you. How do you help your learners avoid post-learning memory loss? What are the methodologies and tools that you employ? Hi, my name is Jerson James. Let's learn, let's grow together.